Vice President Kamala Harris unveiled today a plan that speaks directly to black men. She lays out, it's called With the Tools to Achieve Financial Freedom, but it doesn't just cover finances, deals with health and other issues. Here's some of the things in this particular proposal from the Harris-Walz campaign. Provide $1 million fully forgivable loans to black entrepreneurs to start a business. Champion education, training, and mentorship programs, support a regulatory framework for cryptocurrency and other digital assets, launch a national health equity initiative focused on black men, legalize recreational marijuana, and create opportunities for black Americans. Also in the plan, as I said, it deals with health, education, any number of things there. Now, of course, you've had folks who've been calling for, oh, we need this specific plan. But the reality is what you see right here also impacts all black people, not just black men. Now, she wants to create and invest in programs that help expand pathways for job opportunities for black men, including promoting apprenticeships, strengthening the public service loan forgiveness program, and investing in more black male teachers. Now, I sat down with her yesterday in North Carolina. We're going to play that interview for you in about 30 minutes. But right now, though, I do want to talk about this particular agenda. Now, what's happening right now is a group of black men on a Zoom call talking about this very thing. And so they're talking, Trey Baker, with the campaign, is talking to Tony West, the brother-in-law of Vice President Kamala Harris. Let's go live to that call right now.
President, we've been on the road almost nonstop since the convention, really. And we've got 3 weeks to go. Sort of two things I'll mention. First is that, or three things. First is that this campaign, as you all well know, this election is very, very close. We've got 3 weeks left before we start, before Election Day. And it is so close in all the battleground states. And I believe that this is one of the few elections in American history that will be decided by not just men. And I think that creates a tremendous opportunity to speak to black men about the issues that we care about most. Second thing I'll say is that the vice president is no stranger to these issues. Throughout her vice presidency, certainly throughout her career, but particularly throughout her vice presidency, she has been convening black men at her residence to talk about these issues that are important to us and to our community. This is something she's done throughout her 20-year public service career, but particularly as vice president, she's put a premium on this, whether it's doing visits to small businesses around the country, small black businesses around the country, or whether it is talking about the health and concerns that black men have and are confronting and dealing with that as vice president. This is something that she has done and has made a priority her entire career, and certainly as vice president. Third thing I wanted to talk about was just to give you the sort of top lines of the policy agenda that the vice president rolled out today, the opportunity agenda for black men. And this is really a comprehensive plan that's aimed at helping black men secure financial freedom, to lower costs, to better provide themselves and their families with what they need in order to be successful. And specifically, there are a couple of top lines that are worth noting. For instance, in the plan, the vice president's proposing up to 1 million fully forgivable startup business loans for black entrepreneurs. That's going to help not only create jobs in our communities, it's going to help supercharge the growth and the creation of small businesses, and particularly black small businesses in this country. We've already seen in the last 3.5 years, more black small businesses started in the last 3.5 years than we had seen in the previous 3 decades. The vice president wants to continue doing just that. Second, this agenda calls for a regulatory framework for cryptocurrency and other digital assets. And as many folks know, many of you know, Black folks and Latinos actually own a lot of digital assets and use that as a way of building wealth. For a lot of us, sort of in the generation that I am in and in our parents' generation, the way that families could primarily build wealth was through home ownership. Another vehicle, particularly in communities of color, has been through owning digital assets. And it's important that we have a regulatory framework that protects those investments, protects those investors, but also allows us to develop that technology. And that is what the vice president is proposing. The other thing that is a part of this opportunity agenda is one that goes right to healthcare, a national health equity initiative focused on Black men who are disproportionately impacted by mental health, prostate cancer, diabetes, other health challenges, something that is focused on addressing those health issues in a meaningful and impactful way. And then lastly, I guess the last one I'll mention is the legalization of recreational marijuana at the federal level. This is so important because a lot of Black entrepreneurs, as we know, have been able to find opportunity in the cannabis industry. But they've been impeded and hamstrung by the fact that at the federal level, notwithstanding the fact that over 30 states have legalized cannabis, at the federal level, we still see cannabis treated as a scheduled drug that makes it very difficult for Black entrepreneurs to get the funding and the capital that they need, the bank loans that they need, because banks and other financial institutions that are federally regulated are very reluctant to fund those ventures. And so by changing that at the federal level, this will create opportunities, particularly it'll create opportunities across the board, but particularly for Black entrepreneurs to succeed in this new industry. So those are the top lines. I'm very excited about it. I'm very excited to be out here on the road and to start talking about this with Black men all over the country. But with that, let me just kick it back over to Trey. Thanks again for joining.
Call, but we appreciate what you're doing out on the road. We see you in the car right now. I was with you in Milwaukee. I know you're hitting stops in Philadelphia and in Georgia and elsewhere because it's so important to take this message out. So thank you for the work that you're doing. We will see you on the road as we continue over these next 20 some odd days until we get to Election Day. Appreciate that. We're going to turn now to a group of, or a couple of men who we have on.
All right, folks, again, if you want to join that call, we're actually live streaming that on one of our other channels, so you can actually check that out live. That continues as we go forward with our show. Trey asked me to join the calls. I said, Trey, I'm kind of working right now, so I can't do that. Let me bring up my panel, Dr. Julianne Malveaux, economist, president, emerita, Bennett College, also the author out of D.C., Dr. Amakongo Dibinga Sr., professorial lecturer, School of International Service, American University out of D.C., former Renita Shannon, former Georgia State Representative, joining us out of Atlanta. Amakongo, I want to start with you. So, first of all, let's be real clear. All of this stuff has been going on. And I'm just going to say this, that this reminds me of what happened during when Stacey Abrams was running for governor. We saw all of these stories about, oh my God, she's awful with Black men and Black men not going to vote for her. Things are not going well. Then when the election happened, none of that was the case. You have white media driving this narrative. And it was like manna from heaven when Obama made his comments on Friday. And they have been talking about it since Friday and Saturday and Sunday and today. And, the thing for me as I look at this is we had the panels last week when we were in Philadelphia. And I'm going to stand on this. I don't care what anybody has to say. And I dare them to come at me on this. When I kept hearing folks say, oh, Black men want to be heard, want to be talked to totally agree with that. I've been saying since 2012, you got to communicate, you got to message. But then when people kept saying, oh, well, black men need to hear a specific agenda, just like all these other black people kept saying specifics. As a matter of fact, I had somebody on my Instagram page. Well, she didn't say what she was going to do specifically for black people. Well, in fact, that was the first question that I had asked her, because there was this clip going around on the Congo when she said, I'm not going to sit here and say what I'm going to do specifically for black people, but they cut out what she said before that and after that. And I asked her that in the interview. Folks will see later. But every time I challenge these brothers on the issue of, what specifically, they can't seem to answer. Yep. And then when they bring it up, I then go, well, this happened. And I lay all these things out. And then when they do that, I then talk about how those very same things have a direct impact on black women. And it's not like black women are saying, well, you ain't saying nothing, doing nothing. And so that's what bothers me. And so I appreciate what the vice president put out today, but to act as if Biden-Harris hasn't done anything that has an impact on black people is simply nonsensical.
100%. Look, if you don't know what Vice President Harris's plans are now, you either don't know how to read or you simply just don't care to know. Because it's all been out there. It's been all on. You've talked about it even before she was, running for president. Look, the fact of the matter is, and then we can flip it, Roland. Donald Trump's been running for out there for 8-9 years now. What's his plan? What's his plan for black people? What, the Cadillac plan? Is that what's going on with Trump? So what is it that we know about him? Vice President Harris has been direct. She's been authentic. She has talked about this, again, before she was running for president. And on top of that, you have people like yourself, organizations like the Black Economic Alliance, who've also talked about her agenda for black people. And then the flip side, which what you started with, people are, especially in these white media outlets, are setting it up to blame her potentially losing the election on black men specifically and black people as a whole, which makes no sense because, as we always talked about, black men are number 2 behind black women. And no other group, no other presidential candidate has numbers that represent for them as high as black women followed by black men. Trump may get 60%, white women, 50% white men or something like that. No one's getting 80+% from any group. So that's something that should be commended. And I do believe that both black men and women are going to turn out in over 90% for Harris. And look, you got this call that you just went into right now, everything that you've been doing, these celebrities, everybody from Steph Curry, other personalities like D.L. Hughley. I mean, even people talk about Charlemagne being the contrary. And he was like, look, I voted for Biden because of Harris back in 2020. So this is a false narrative. If they did as many stories on white women who constantly let the Democratic Party down, if they did as many stories on them as they do on black men and how they may let Harris down, then we get some real issues right now getting talked about, because I'm not concerned about us. People who are black men who are not going to vote for Harris, they were not going to vote for her anyway, and there's nothing we can do to get them. I do believe there are some people who need to know, but at this point, 20-something days going into the election, the onus is on those folks who say they don't know to get out there and find out. Like, Google Kamala Harris black men and everything you'll know, type in Black Star Network or Roland Martin, so you can go to a real source, and everything you'll need to know is right there. Watch this interview tonight. Share this interview. And outside of that, if you didn't vote for her because you say you don't know her policies, you chose to remain ignorant, and that's on you.
See, here's the thing right here, Renita. They laid out, again, this Vice President Harris will deliver for black men. And so it lays out a variety of things in here. First and foremost, look, I was there in Detroit. I was there in Atlanta. She went to Atlanta multiple times. She went to Charlotte, actually talking about this economic opportunity tour. And so then you go through here. So you heard the things that we already talked about, launching a national health equity initiative focused on black men that addresses sickle cell disease, diabetes, mental health, prostate cancer, and other health challenges that disproportionately affect them. And so then you go through here and you see these things. You look at the issues here where you talk about this $20,000 forgivable loan for black entrepreneurs. And so then when you go through here and you begin to see a partnership with the Small Business Administration, expanding access to bank accounts. Again, when you talk about enabling black men and other workers to profit when company executives profit, expanding pathways for black men to good paying jobs, whether or not they have a college degree, and on and on and on. Now, I say all of that. I say all of that because, again, those things are good because, again, what black folks are saying is I want to hear from you in terms of what you're going to do. But when I think about hashtag we did that, and that's what I use here. Here we go to my iPad, because I asked the White House, tell me exactly what you actually accomplished in 3.5 years for African Americans. I need everybody listening. I'm just going to go through this here. So they sent me achieved lowest black unemployment rate on record, created 2.4 million jobs for black workers as of August 2024. Lifted 400,000 black children out of poverty by increased SNAP benefits through updating the Thrifty Food Plan. Who wants to actually cut the SNAP program? Republicans. Grew black American business ownership at the fastest rate in over 3 decades. Tripled the number of SBA-backed loans to black-owned businesses. Awarded a record $10 billion in federal contracts to black-owned small businesses in 2023. Invested more than $16 billion in HBCUs, secured a $900 increase to the maximum Pell Grant Award, largest increase in the past 10 years. And here's the piece, that Pell Grant money is actually in addition to the HBCU money. Then approved the cancellation of almost $170 billion in student loan debt, rooted out racial bias in home appraisals, and closed the black-white home valuation disparity gap by 40%. And you'll hear me talk to Vice President Harris about that. Reduced mortgage insurance premiums for FHA loans, saving 76,000 black households $900 a year. Cut costs for high-speed internet to 5.5 million black households with the Affordable Connectivity Program. Distributed $2.2 billion in financial assistance to over 43,000 farmers who experienced discrimination. And of course, Stephen Miller, Trump's white nationalist, sued to stop the money that was allocated to black and Hispanic farmers. Led a historically equitable economic recovery. Black wealth, even after adjusting for inflation, is up 60% to pre-pandemic levels, the largest increase on record. Ending health disparities. It says right here, lower premium costs by an average of $800 for millions of Americans, increasing black enrollment in Affordable Care Act coverage by 95%, more than 1.7 million people since 2020. That specifically impacts black men and their health. Lowered monthly premiums for health insurance, capped the cost of insulin at $35 and out-of-pocket drug costs at $2,000 for those on Medicare. Announced the first 10 prescription drugs for Medicare price negotiation, saving some $1.5 billion. Made sickle cell disease the first focus of the new Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services model. Expanded Medicaid postpartum coverage from 60 days to 12 months in 46 states and Washington, D.C., covering 700,000 more women in the year of childbirth. Secured an additional $1.5 billion for a Head Start. Delivered $1 billion to more than 40 states to increase the number of school-based mental health professionals. Signed 2 executive orders directing the federal government to address inequality. Protected Black history as American history. Signed the Juneteenth National Independence Day Act. Designated Springfield 1908 Race Riot and Emmett Till and Mamie Till Mobley National Monuments. Signed the Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Act to classify lynching for the first time as a federal hate crime. Worked to protect the sacred right to vote through executive actions and continued calls for legislation. Appointed the first black woman to the Supreme Court. There are more black women federal circuit court and more black women to federal circuit courts than all previous presidents combined, and more black judges appointed in a single term, more than any other president in American history. Signed an executive order on police reform when Senate Republicans blocked the George Floyd Justice Act. Signed into law the first bipartisan Safer Communities Act. secure $350 million in funding specifically for community violence intervention programs, pardon thousands of Americans under federal and D.C. law for simple possession of marijuana, help bring crime to its lowest level in 50 years, lower than during any year of the previous administration, and what's not in here, I'll add, that was one patterns and practice investigation, Renita, under Trump, 12 under Biden-Harris. Donald Trump executed 13 people in 6 months on the federal level, 0 under Biden-Harris. Then, when you look at the Department of Justice, mortgage discrimination, settlements with various people, putting former cops in prison for beating black people, jailers and wardens, exact same thing, investigations and action against various juvenile programs in Texas, as well as investigating prison conditions in Mississippi, South Carolina, Georgia, and on. Now, my criticism of the Biden-Harris administration is that this stuff was not constantly touted over the last 3.5 years. But I can't act like it didn't happen.
Well, it's that time of the year and this part of the election cycle where as the election tightens, we see this every time where we see folks who instantly go to blame black men saying that they are not going to vote for the candidate. And so once again, things are being blamed on black men when, as you said before, it's just not true. The majority of black men do still vote for Democrats, just like the majority of black women do. You mentioned, here in Georgia in 2018, there were over 1 million black people of every gender that did not vote for Stacey Abrams. So this is not something where it's, something that is factually based to just say that black men are always the ones letting us down. It's just not true. I also think this is very interesting that right now the polling shows that Latino men are 15% behind Latino women as it relates to how they feel about the Harris campaign, but nobody is, sort of preemptively blaming them for, impending loss. So I think all of that is very interesting.
Yep.
This is the thing. Voters are very simple. They have to, number one, understand what you are saying you will do. So things need to be in very simple layman's terms when you're talking about what policies you're going to move forward. And then the second thing is whatever you're saying you're going to do has to align with the voters' priorities. So it doesn't matter how long the list is that you give of the things you've done. If it's not what the voters, what was their top priorities, it will count as essentially nothing. I think that the plan that she rolled out today, I see 2 good points. I see 2 points that need more specifics, but then I see 2 good points that I think hit that sweet spot of easy to understand, and it does go to what I have heard black men say are part of their priorities. It's that $1 million for small business loans. That's important because we've heard over and over again black men say that they are interested in not so much, obviously there's a certain population that wants to have better jobs, and we need that with the livable wage. But then there are some black men who have said this is their life dream, just to be able to start a small business, feed their family, take care of their family, and be able to work for themselves. The second thing that I think is a big deal is the 4th policy that talks about legalizing marijuana. This is so important, not because we are saying that black men care about marijuana so much specifically, but what we know is the war on drugs that started in the 80s ruined a lot of lives, and black men were disproportionately targeted for that crackdown sort of by the criminal legal system. And so criminal legal reform is extremely important. And so whether you're talking about black men saying, hey, I remember what happened to me and this was not fair and it ruined my life, or whether you're talking about black men who maybe never had any interest in marijuana, they still have relatives in their family who are other black men, and black women also have black men in their families too. And they want to know that their lives are not going to be ruined because of policy that just does not make any sense. So I think that those 2 policies that she's got are definitely the sweet spot, and I think she needs to go further in that direction. I'd love to see some clarification on the health initiative, because what are we talking about? Are you saying that even if you don't have insurance, you'll get free colonoscopies, or are we just saying we're going to talk to black men about why it's important to get your colonoscopy?
Well,
this is the direction.
But here's the thing, Julian. Again, go to my iPad. If black men are saying, hey, we want to see loans to black-owned businesses, this is a press release from September 21st, 2023. SBA data shows major increases in loans to black-owned businesses under Biden-Harris. That's actually been happening. It's been happening. So, again, if anybody out there who's like, oh, she's saying black-owned businesses are going to get loans, They have been getting loans. They've tripled. Go right ahead.
No, you're absolutely right, Roland. I think that the biggest flaw in the Biden-Harris administration has been their failure to trumpet their victories. And so now we're getting this, and it's not like we're just getting it. We know about what they've done. Some of us know, but as Oma Congo says, if you don't know, it's because you don't want to know. I mean, I'm sick of people saying, give me more specifics. She's giving you as many as she can. She can't tell you exactly what's going to happen because she doesn't know what the Senate is going to look like, what the House is going to look like, but she's showing her intent. And so I think there are a lot of people who are shilly-shallying. And among those shilly-shallying are the mainstream media. I keep seeing in the background in my office most of the day. I do switch to Black Star Network every now and then. But in any case, I think today that every show has had something about Black men, something negative, Black men not voting for Harris. And it's a way, first of all, driving a wedge through the Black community, which, white folks love, driving a wedge in the Black community so that Black women and Black men get to be at each other's throat about this. That's number one. But number two, as Renita says, it demonizes Black men. So if the unfortunate occurrence is that Kamala Harris loses, which we pray does not happen, I can hear the pundits already. She lost because of Black men. Let's be clear about what proportion of the population Black men are. Let's be clear about what Black men, could do, could not do. And let's not allow this to draw a wedge in our community, because that's what they like more than anything else. Now, the third thing I will say is that there are these, what is it, Black men for Trump? I was online looking at that earlier today, and you want to know who are these Black men and why? Now, I'm not throwing shade at anybody, but one of the people is Kwame Kilpatrick. Loved the brother when he was mayor of Detroit. Trump pardoned him. So is this a quid pro quo or what? His politics were never aligned with the Trump, but now he's in this group of, I think they listed 5 or 6 Black men. I didn't know any of the other ones. Not that I have to. I probably wouldn't want to. But just look at who these Black men are and where they're coming from. And then finally, I don't know what's going to happen in the interview with Charlemagne the God. I've never listened to his show. I guess I have to catch up on my cultural awareness. But they've already demonized him, say he's going to be hostile to her. How do they know? So again, it's really trying to throw Black men under the bus. And it's objectionable. White folks say they don't want to play racial politics, but they play racial politics all the time. And this is certainly one time when they're lifting up Black men in a negative way that they're playing racial politics.
They play racial politics all the time, and the reality is they need to be challenged as well on what the hell their numbers look like.
I get it. The cost of rent, groceries, and utilities is too high. So here's what we're going to do about it. We will lower housing costs by building more homes and crack down on landlords who are charging too much. We will lower your food and grocery bills by going after price gougers who are keeping the cost of everyday goods too high. I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message because you work hard for your paycheck. You should get to keep more of it. As president, I'll make that my top priority.